So many years ago, before there were communication devices that allowed you to broadly and quickly communicate to people, we were invited to a wedding. And we showed up at the wedding at the right time on what we thought was the right day.
Actually early.
And we're seated right behind the groom's parents, like in row 2. And as the wedding ceremony went on, we realized that we didn't recognize any of the people that were around us, and including the groom, who we were there at his invitation as he walked in, and did a bunch of rationalizing as to why we didn't recognize anyone. And then the bridesmaids came in and we didn't recognize them either. And finally we knew we were at the wrong wedding when the bride came down the aisle, and we were expecting a redhead and there was a blonde that came down the aisle. So we kind of stayed there, waited until everyone was seated, and looked at each other and thought, we're at the wrong wedding, but we need to get to the right wedding. So as we were all asked to stand and pray, as everyone's heads went down, we actually exited very quickly and went straight up the aisle, grabbed our gift off the gift table in the back, and left the wedding. And come to find out that what had happened was they had double booked the wedding at this wedding chapel, and we had not been informed, as others had, that we shouldn't have been there. So to this day, we're expecting that the people are trying to figure out who this random couple was that signed their guest book and got up and left in the middle of their wedding.
We, Brooke, Violet, Naomi, and me, Caitlin, were adopted in China 10 years ago. Every year we do a reunion in a different place, and it's all of us, and it's just a time for us to hang out, because a lot of us don't live near each other because we live all around the U.S. I remember getting, for Christmas when I was little, I got this huge Elmo stuffed animal, and I was so happy.
I remember I was on the plane, I was holding a breadstick, and I threw it, and it hit someone on the head.
1976 was the year we were traveling. I was a teacher in Australia, in Victoria, and we were traveling. We left Adelaide, South Australia, and went to Port Fairy, and then went across a nullarbor plain from Adelaide, and saw 2 people hitchhiking that were Australian Aborigines. They were looked like average people, but they needed a ride. They looked kind of desperate, and this was in the middle of the start of what's called the desert. The Australian deserts are quite large and lengthy. This was a 2-day drive to go from Adelaide to Perth, and we decided to pick them up. And so they sat in the back seat, and we were in the front seat, and we went maybe an hour or 2, and we had to stop at a water tank to get water, because when you go across the deserts in Australia, you usually pack extra water and put some on the front of your radiator in that water sack. And we got out to go in the bush to go to the restroom to do our duties in the restroom, and they sat still and didn't move. And we thought that was kind of unusual. They did speak English, but not a lot, didn't say much. And later on, we traveled, must have been 18 hours, and they said in the evening they were going to a reservation, Aborigine reservation, and we were welcome to stay there. We had a lot of old books we'd picked up, and we decided, well, instead of sending these to Costa Rica, we were going to leave for Costa Rica. And we decided to give those books to the people on the reservation. And the most unusual thing about the reservation was kind of back in a couple of kilometers was they lived in bark, kind of lean-tos, they called them in Australia. They were bark lean-tos made out of eucalyptus bark, and we spent the night there. It was very, very interesting, probably one of our most interesting experiences.
This was in Costa Rica. We were spending part of the winter over there, summer over here, and we decided to go to the beach that morning. Beautiful day, but we forgot that in the middle of the day is when the rain comes. So we decided to take advantage of the morning, going to the beach. Then suddenly we saw all these clouds and thunders, and ooh, we gotta be getting home. But the buses had already passed, so we had to walk 4 hours in those days, 4 hours back to the house. It got to be 6 o'clock at night, and it was so dark you could not see. It was a rain, it was a river, and it was a wall of stone on the side. So the only thing we had to do was to stay holding ourselves behind into the wall of stone, I guess it was what it was. Meanwhile, there was people looking for us, and there were horses and people in the horses coming to look for us, but we could not move and we could not call them. We got home about 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's when they told us that they were the ones that were looking for us, and it was kind of interesting to see that they could not believe that we had spent all this morning and all night waiting for the rain to stop. So